Welcome to Wellness is a Way of Life, the podcast for female leaders seeking sustainable energy, clarity, and confidence. I'm Megan Swan, your guide on a journey to mastering wellness as an integrated part of your life. Let's explore personalized wellness strategies that truly resonate with who you are. Welcome back to Wellness as a Way of Life. I'm so excited today to interview my friend, Melissa, the sober New Yorker. I met her in a container that we will discuss, I'm sure, in this conversation, where we were getting certified to coach incredible women on this work that we've been doing. Her story specifically had a turn when she decided to take a health scare into her own hands and really she ditched the booze, changed her diet, moved her body, and began living her life to the fullest. These radical changes ultimately led her to this certification to become an alcohol-free success and mindset coach. Today, she coaches women to make the same big, bold, badass decisions. I love that alliteration, by the way, removing alcohol from their lives so they can live authentically while fulfilling their biggest dreams and desires. Welcome, Melissa. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you, Megan. I am fabulous. It's so great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm honored to have you on the show, and I'd love if we could talk, sort of help people back when you were not in the decision made moment. Like, what was going on? What were you feeling? I know there was like some empty nest stuff maybe coming down at you, or like, what is it that made you realize, wait a minute, like there is an alternative choice here? And did it come all at once, or was it kind of these healthier things that you started to thread in and you realized bit by bit?
I think that if I'm, if I'm thinking about it, it started about 5 or 6 years ago when I really started thinking about what my life might look like without alcohol, because there were times when I would visit my doctor and my liver enzymes would be slightly elevated. And it was a direct result of something that was going on in my life, that I was using drinking wine to self-medicate. And it made sense that they were elevated. And she would say to me, take a break from alcohol, come back in 3 weeks, and we'll retest. And the first time that happened, I think, was in 2018. And I took a break. Actually, it might have been before that, around that time. I took a break and I came back and they were fine. And so it was clearly the alcohol. And in those 3 weeks, it was like transformative. Just 3 weeks away from alcohol made me feel so good. I lost weight. I was clear-headed. It was just beautiful. And I tried to kind of keep along that path as much I could. But in my head, things, it comes back. Like maybe I can just have one or two here and there. And I think for a little time I could. And until it comes, it comes back more than that. And so I did that a few times. I found myself taking little breaks here and there. But it was always something that was really intriguing to me. And I started hearing more about it. I started paying attention to, there was a movement in the UK called 1 Year No Beer
Mhm.
with Andy Ramage. I heard him on a Rich Roll podcast. And he had a book out called The 28-Day Alcohol, Remove Alcohol from Your Life Experiment. I got the book and I thought, 28 days. I could do 28 days. And I did like 6 days. And then we went out for dinner, and I thought, how am I supposed
Yeah.
to not drink on a Friday night at
Yeah.
dinner, right? So there
Mhm.
were like little things like that came along. So it was always there in my head. And I really wanted to try, I really tried to be a woman who could just have a couple glasses of wine. And I was just not that person. I just wasn't. And when the pandemic happened, I was 4 months alcohol free. And I felt really good. And I felt like this is something that maybe I can do. I was doing the 1 year no beer. I was getting, emails, daily emails. There was a Facebook group that I was kind of tapped into. And that I remember it like it was yesterday, March 12th, 2020, in New York. Things were getting crazy.
Mhm.
School wasn't canceled yet, but other things were starting to get canceled. And we didn't know what was going on. There were grocery stores with lines out the door. And my husband and I said, let's just go out to dinner and take a breath. And there was something in my head that said, gosh, maybe it would feel good to just have a beer. Like, because this is weird what's going on. I could just have a beer. 4 months to the date. And
Mm.
he said to me, have a beer. And then in the very next sentence, he said, do you think you can have just one? And that night I did have just one. And I think I did say beer because beer wasn't my thing. And for a few more days I didn't drink, right? But then school got, put on pause. I've got two teenagers home with me and a husband, and things just got, really unpredictable. And I started reaching for that wine again, and the pandemic was hard for a lot of us, and yeah, it just crept back into my life, and I felt like every time I took a break, when I picked it up again, it came on stronger.
Well, I'd love to go back a little bit to where, like, let's even just the 3 weeks where your doctor
Mhm.
says, "Hey, just t take a break and then let's retest." Because it with my situation, I also don't think I would have ever decided to quit forever. Decided to quit. I don't even remember. I think it was either 3 months or a year. Like I had mindfully been drinking for a year before that. So I knew I wanted to quit, and I had been doing all sorts of like, I'd been running and personally doing all these detoxes where obviously alcohol is one of the things you don't consume on a, hardcore detox. And so I knew I could do large breaks, but I don't think I would have decided ever, like forever. I had to like do a long time and convince myself with the how I felt that, yeah, no, like it just changed my perspective of my relationship with it. But at that time, like what was hard about through 3 weeks, or was it not hard because you knew it was this closed window?
Yeah, I do think that it was not hard because it was like do 3 weeks and come back like and retest. To her, honestly, it was let's see if it is the alcohol,
Mm,
right? And
yeah,
not something else. And in 3 weeks, my liver enzymes went back completely normal. So it was the alcohol.
definitive.
But
Yeah.
to me, in that 3 weeks, it was a real sign of how good I felt. That was a real wake up call to me
Hmm.
because besides being pregnant with my two children, I'd never had 3 weeks.
Right.
And I felt great when I was pregnant. Amazing. And I think part of that reason is because I wasn't drinking.
The other thing I wanted to pull on there is, it really seemed to be an emotional piece for you when your husband kind of put the mirror up and asked. So was that for you like a moment where you realized he also thought you had a problem?
It was a moment where, yeah, that was in his head. Yeah, he drank, but not nearly the amount that I did. And he never brought it up with me. It wasn't something that he ever challenged me on. And I think, looking back, I wish he would have, because it would have been easier, and I maybe would have changed my ways earlier. But we have since had many conversations about it. And on my own podcast, I brought him on as a guest and asked him these hard questions, which was,
Oh, I'm gonna go back and listen to
yeah,
it.
it was great. He was actually my very first guest. And, because it was like, in his mind, it was like, it's a push and pull. It's a delicate matter. Like, how much do you interfere, and how much do you just let a person try to figure it out on their own,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, I know for me, the first time I went home, I actually just decided on an airplane on the way home that I was gonna quit. And even though it was gonna be hard, but it was like so much more story built up in my head of the pushback that was gonna happen socially that literally did not happen. Like there was not one, oh, you must be pregnant joke. Like there was not one, are you sure? Like just with no thank you, time and time again, that whole week where I was home in situations where in my mind it was impossible to do,
Mhm.
whether it was girlfriends or the family, which really got me thinking like similar, like maybe these people have thought this for a while, or they're certainly not against the idea. It was very, very enlightening. So now, fast forward, like you're over a year sober or coming up on.
Yeah, almost 18 months, actually. Yeah.
So you have unleashed like new energy, new clarity, new purpose. I would say like almost no one else in our program in terms of the timeline, right? And I would just love to know what did that feel like over the 18 months? Like, can you kind of mark it where you had, I don't know, where you felt powerful in a good way, thanks to all of this?
Yeah, for me, it happened very quickly, because in my head, I had so and just to back it up a little bit, when I went to see my doctor in August of 23 for a routine appointment, I needed a prescription filled. So it was just a physical. I had not seen her in close to 2 years, because we were doing virtual appointments in the pandemic, right?
Right,
A
right.
lot of people got off the hook with virtual appointments. You didn't have to get on the scale. You didn't have to get your blood pressure taken, right? You just had to check in on Zoom. No one could see you from the neck down.
Mm.
Right. So once we got to, over the hump of COVID, it was time to go in and see her in person. And I was the heaviest I've been. I knew I was drinking too much. I couldn't tell anyone I felt that way. And for some reason, I felt like I could tell my doctor, because I in the past have told her. And I've also walked in that office when I had that 4 months of being sober. I walked in that office for a physical, and I said, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done drinking. I feel so good. And she was like, yes, I'm so happy for you. I have other patients that are doing the same thing, right? So she has been on this journey with me. So I walked in and I was like, I I'm drinking too much. And I went in with, I had heard on the news, that semaglutides, Ozempic and whatnot, can help curb cravings for alcohol.
Mhm.
So I went in with that information as maybe this is like something I should do. And she knew about that. And she said that because I'm not diabetic, I wouldn't qualify. But she was so non-judgmental, open, accepting. I have to say, she is just the most wonderful woman on this planet. She's such a huge part of my story. Dr. Carmen Chitu at NYU Langone here in New York. And she listened to me. She really did. We talked about naltrexone. I'd never heard of naltrexone. She knew about my 1 year no beer gang from years ago. We hadn't taken my blood yet. So we took my blood. She was still somewhat optimistic, but in my head, I knew it was going to be bad.
Mhm.
So she took my blood and the blood work comes in the very next day and it was atrocious. It was not just liver enzymes. It was cholesterol. My blood pressure, of course, I knew was high because you see that right away. My weight was high, but my cholesterol, my glucose, my A1C was very close to that diabetic range.
Mhm.
And my liver enzymes, which, that's a number that hovers between 5 and 40 on a normal range. There's two different numbers. That 3 weeks that I abstained from years ago, it was like maybe in the 80s and 100. Now one was 195 and one was 322.
Mhm.
Very high, the highest it's ever been. These numbers did not shock me. They did not make me faint or anything. I got an email from her that said, if you don't make drastic behavioral changes, I'm going to have to put you on medication. We're talking a statin, blood pressure medication. If I'm going down the diabetic road, that's something we're going to have to talk about. And I want to see you no less than 3 months. And there was something that just clicked. It was like click. Right then and there, I made up my mind that I am not a moderate drinker, period. That I have been, excuse my language, I'll say dicking around.
You
I've
can
been
swear, it's all good.
I've been fucking around for 5, 6 years trying to be, right? I've been trying to be. I was like,
Mhm.
it was like my job, but I was not good at it. I was getting fired from my job if it was my job. In that moment, I said, I'm just not that person. And this is my new reality. I am going to make this my new reality. I am not going to be one of these people, one of these millions of Americans that gets prescribed a statin because they have high cholesterol, that gets put in the diabetes, right? My mom and grandmother have diabetes. I had been pre-diabetic. I've been pre-diabetic for like 9 years. It is a genetic thing, but I want to put it off as long as possible. It just clicked. And I thought, okay, I'm getting to work. I'm getting to work. And I made that appointment for 11 weeks from that day. And I just buckled down. I just buckled down. I started walking every day, miles, miles and miles. I went back at one point on my app, the tracker. I think like the 6 months before I quit, I had logged like maybe 40 miles or something in 6 months. And then
Mhm.
the 30 days that I quit, I had 80 miles.
Wow.
Like I went to my gym. I'm paying for this bougie gym that I maybe went to 3 or 4 times a month. I started going more. I didn't like the way I looked, but I went. I just started putting one foot in front of the other. I cut out, in that email, she was like, drastic behavioral changes mean try to stop drinking, low carbohydrate diet, move your body, those three things. And I did those three things. And I started feeling good within, 3 weeks. That's a magic number for me. I really, within 3 weeks, you notice change. you start losing weight, the clarity comes back, and I just kept going. And 6 weeks was another one, 8 weeks. And, I was seeing pictures of, I didn't want to look at I didn't want to look at pictures of myself before I quit. And when I did, it was sad because in my head, I thought, maybe this is just the life I've meant to live. And that was a thought I'd never encountered before in my life. So now I'm looking good, I'm feeling good, and I've got this appointment coming up 11 weeks to the date. And and I couldn't wait to see her. How many people can say that about their doctor? I couldn't wait to see her. Um, I went in. I didn't know about my what my numbers would be, but I knew what my weight was. I had lost 27 pounds in that
Wow.
in that time frame. We did my blood. I mean, she walked in, and this is all, there was no Ozempic, or there was no drugs involved. She walked in, she actually made a comment that she thought I was getting Ozempic on the black market. I was not. She couldn't wait to take my blood. I was like holding out my arm, like, take my blood, please. And those in 11 weeks, I lost 50 points off my cholesterol. The liver enzymes were normal. The A1C came down to below pre-diabetic level. The blood pressure was normal, everything across the board. And there was nothing in me like the 3 weeks, right? The experiment from years ago. Oh, now I can, now I could have a drink here and there. There was nothing in me that said, I'm going to pick up wine on the way home and celebrate my new great numbers. It was just like, this is my life now. This is what I'm doing. And I am just going to keep going. Because I had never felt so good in my life. And I'm 52 years old at this point, I'm 53 now. So to be able to say that at that age, I mean, I felt like I was reborn, truly. And I still feel that way. I really do. Yeah.
Incredible. I love this because I think there's so many women that are just living in this stuck stuck area. We can talk about gray drinking, we can talk about, and there's like so many layers of it, but I think at the end of the day, there are just some key habits that are life changing. And I do agree that 3 weeks is, it's 21, there's all sorts of research about the 21 days, shifting a habit. But really, it's like enough time that you can't kid yourself that it's the thing that you've changed
Mhm.
that's making the massive difference. And yeah, I just like it's never too late. It's never too late to
No.
do, and especially like I don't know about you, but I'm planning on being around till at least 108, maybe 120. We'll see how things are going. Like we're not even halfway. And to have a mentality like anywhere after 40 of like, this is just like what life is.
Right.
It's just so powerful to surround yourself by other women also that are people
Right.
like, no, actually I'm starting again, or I'm like starting this whole other chapter. And it's like, what do you want to do for the next, like, let's go short, even 30 years. It's like, that's a
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah. But if you're not taking care of yourself, that is what you start to think. That is what you start to think. I was not taking care of myself. I was having these thoughts of sitting on my couch drinking. My kids are getting older. My daughter's in college at this point. My son's in high school. And my husband's going to work every day. I had a part-time job at this point, caring for a senior lady, two senior women. And my thoughts are, what am I going to do when my kids leave my house? Am I still going to be sitting here drinking on my couch? And how pathetic is that? And it made me like so sad. And uh, those those like immediate weeks leading up to when I removed alcohol were so sad and so scary. And it was really when I knew that something wasn't right, and really is the reason I will never, ever go back, because I started feeling like I did, like, what if I did not get out of bed today? And I had never felt that way before. I had never felt that way. I've seen my mom go through depression. I've seen my really good friends go through that. I've never experienced that. And in my head, I was like, oh my God, I think this is what depression is. It was like, and it's coming for me? I can't believe this. How is this possible? Well, no shit, Melissa, it's coming for you because you're drinking wine. Oh, look at how much wine you're drinking. Like, this is what happens. This is a depressant. This is what happens. I
Yeah.
mean, honestly, Megan, I would wake up, I would wake up in the morning and say, well, you're here. You woke up this morning. You didn't die. I don't know why. For some reason, you're here for another day. Like, that is like low level depressive shit. And I didn't even tell my doctor that. And she listened to the very first podcast I recorded. I sent it to her and she listened to it. And, she kind of like had a little few words with me about it because I mentioned that in it. And, I was like, I'm sorry, I couldn't tell you that part. I told you about the drinking. I couldn't tell her everything, I could, it was the baby steps. I could tell you about drinking. I couldn't tell you everything. And I remember, her asking that question, do you feel depressed, and answering no. But in my head, I thought, I'm not being truthful.
Well, I think I mean, it's hard also in modern medicine, we don't necessarily think those categories are so related. And you and I know, how deeply related drinking alcohol is to these feelings, but I don't think that that's how we're socialized to really understand. We're
Mhm.
socialized, oh, you're not feeling good. This is actually going to make you feel better. So then it's
Right.
totally counterintuitive to realize ultimately that no, this actually is just making you feel worse and worse and worse. And in mine, when I fully understood that, I was just newly so sad about losing my dad to alcoholism, knowing that like I watched that happen. I watched that spiral. And yeah. And ultimately, any form of alcoholism is a slow form of suicide. You,
Yeah.
you, you were deciding that you're okay in theory with maybe not waking up. Like that's the decision you're negotiating on a subconscious at the very least, and in the darkest levels of it, I think. Anyway, I
Yeah.
would love to hear. So you're like so not on the couch anymore.
No,
You have like a new career.
I'm so not on the couch. I
Let's
do have a
let's
new career. So
land
it
this
was It,
on a
so
high.
about two months into it, I mean, honestly, like, so this amazing thing happens, when you clear out this toxic poison, your brain like becomes this sponge for new creative outlets,
Mhm.
new possibilities. And about 2 months into it, which is very early. Now, I will say in that 4 months that I had heard about sober coaching, alcohol-free coaching, and I had actually had a one-on-one meeting with someone from This Naked Mind, and I thought about joining that program, but I was still a little on the fence with my own confidence with sobriety.
Mhm.
And I didn't. It was right before the pandemic, and I didn't bite. I just I couldn't commit. But this time, 2 months in, and I had kind of forgotten about that. I was listening to a podcast. I heard someone talking about the euphoric AF coaching certification. I, put it in my notes in my phone, Googled it. I found Carolina's another program, the Emboldened program. I didn't even know what that was. I've told her this. I just signed up for it because it was a way to keep me sober. I was like, it's 4 months. I don't know what the hell it is. It seemed cool. Like
Yeah.
we're just gonna talk, it ended up being like, what is your next purpose, right? Like you've been sober for a little while, and what comes next?
Yeah.
And it ended up being literally like, what do you want to do with your life? Like, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
And she got me to a place where I wanted to be this woman who helps other women get sober. And so that led to this coaching certification and led to starting a sober Instagram and, you know, led to starting my own podcast. And it's just has like
Snowballed.
snowballed into things that I can't sometimes even wrap my head around that I'm doing compared to sitting on my couch, sucking down wine, waiting for my husband to come home from work. And it's so thrilling to me. It fires me up so much. It really does. It gets me out of bed in the morning. It fires me up. I want to scream it from the mountaintops that this life is not only possible, that it is so beautiful and so empowering. Like I had a one-on-one meeting today with a client who's nearing her 90 days. And this
Mm.
client came to me with that typical limiting belief of, am I going to have fun sober? She said that to me on her very first meeting.
Hmm.
And I said, yes, right? You say yes.
Actually more fun, and you're going to remember it. But yeah, okay.
Yeah. And so we talked about that today because she over the weekend texted me that this thing is losing power over her, that
Mm.
she went out with a girlfriend and had mocktails and she's having fun. And we had this one-on-one, and she's getting emotional about it because for the first time in her life, she's like having authentic conversations that mean something to her. And and I mean, she's just, her world is opening up. We got to the point where, drinking is so ordinary. Like anyone can do it. It's so ordinary and it's basic. Like it's a basic bitch thing to do, right?
Totally.
Why not be extraordinary? Who wants to be basic? I certainly don't. I know you don't. I've met you in real life. There's nothing basic about you, right? You wear
The
bright
rebel
colors,
move.
you wear fancy earrings. Like who wants to be ordinary? I just don't. I just don't see it. And why not be the one? I mean, it's hard at first, right? To be the only one in the room that's not drinking at first.
Mhm.
And then you put the wheels in motion, you get the momentum going, and you walk into the room and you're like, yes, I'm the only one that's not drinking in this room, but look at this. Look at all of this, right? Nothing basic here. Nothing basic here. I mean, that's like what it can be. That's what it can be. That's what it is for me. And that's what I want it to be for every client that I work with, honestly. And when I start with someone, I hope to bring them there. I really do.
Well, let's end it on that high note. I love your handle, by the way. And but yeah, tell everyone how they should reach out to you or how it's your preferred way to connect.
My preferred way to connect is through Instagram. I am at the Sober New Yorker. And that is my website, thesobernewyorker.com. And that is my podcast, The Sober New Yorker. It is all things The Sober New Yorker.
Brilliant. And I love your website, by the way. I just went through it. It looks incredible, so powerful. And
Thank you.
yeah, it's been an honor to have you. And I love this conversation. And I'm gonna take that away. Like, who wants to be the basic bitch?
No basic bitches here. No way. Life's too short. Life's too short to be a basic bitch, right?
Totally.
Megan, this has been great. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate you.
Oh, likewise, Melissa. Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in to Wellness is a Way of Life. Are you ready to make wellness a natural part of your routine? Let's stay connected. Go to meganswanwellness.com. Until next time, live well and thrive.